the UK and indeed Europe is accelerating its import volumes of LNG, likely a consequence of the shortfall of Russian natural gas reaching the UK and Europe at present. Do you have a view on how this increasing demand could be met? Lars, I'll come to you first.
I'm not sure that I, as let's say, a truck manufacturer, is the best person to answer that. But I think that it is of course clear that if you invest in vehicles, if you want to, let's say, make sure that the trucks are running, you need to also, of course, secure the supply. So just like we went a little bit earlier, that it is of course crucial to have a long-term strategy here, to really have a long-term supply. And because if the LNG is not there, then of course you can't run your trucks. If you can't run your trucks, then you go bankrupt. So of course the supply here is crucial.
Absolutely. And Stefano, I know not based here in Europe, but do you have a take on that?
Funnily enough, I believe that Lars is the key to the whole solution here. And let me elaborate. Firstly, I need to highlight one thing that he said, which is absolutely crucial. And Lars was very clear that none of these solutions are going to happen quickly. We need to have a long-term solution. And the long-term solution comes in the form that if you plan it correctly for the long term, then you don't have these problems in the future. So there, bravo, that could not have been said better. The reason that I believe what Lars is working on is without doubt pivotal to us changing the way that we switch the current energy mix, is as follows. If you think about the way that energy is funded at the moment, build a coal mine. The banks that are still funding coal mining operations, you will find them all rushing out to throw money at the coal mine without caring whether the coal mine actually has an offtake agreement or not, because it's understood that if you build it, they will buy. You build a petroleum refinery, and the lenders will gladly project fund a refinery on the basis of a high-level macro environment of the economic growth of the country, and therefore diesel and petrol will be consumed in increasing volumes. Not one single offtake agreement. If you build it, they will buy it. And this is true for many, many forms of energy. But when it comes to LNG, no one is willing to give you a single dime unless you have offtake agreements. And if you can't build it without the offtake agreements being in place, it guarantees without question the fact that all of that LNG is only going to go into certain countries and certain sectors. End of story. And there is no debate on that point. How about the lenders and the policymakers take a little bit more risk, and they say, well, let's rather legislate that we're going to force all of the trucks in Europe to run on LNG, the ones where EV is not practical. Let's force them all to run on LNG. And then all of a sudden, you've got X number of trucks, X thousands of trucks that all have to run on LNG. And voila, financing an LNG refinery to produce LNG becomes a lot easier, and you don't need a take or pay agreement on the other side, because you know that there's so much demand from the trucking industry that you will always have a home and a customer for your product base. And so it becomes easier to lend. And if it becomes easier to lend, it's easier to build more LNG projects. And if we build more LNG projects, all of a sudden, within a very few short years, boom, we've solved the energy crisis. So I applaud what Lars and his team are doing, because fundamentally, if you just look at it in the cold, hard light of day, I do believe that they hold the secret to Europe unlocking its long-term LNG needs. If you can get the bankers to play along, let's say, and start taking a little bit more risk, in the sense that if you build it, they will buy it.